The smell of espresso and leather had become as familiar to me as breathing. 2 years working as Nathan Corsetti's personal secretary, and I could identify the exact moment he entered a room by the subtle shift in air pressure, the way conversations died mid-sentence, the electric tension that preceded him like a herald announcing royalty. I adjusted the stack of contracts on my desk, my fingers smoothing non-existent wrinkles from papers that were already perfectly organized. It was 7:47 a.m., which meant Nathan would arrive in exactly 13 minutes. He was nothing if not precise, a quality that extended to every aspect of his life, from the way he took his coffee, 3 shots of espresso with a single sugar cube dissolved slowly, to the specific angle at which documents should be placed on his desk for review. My desk sat just outside his office on the 42nd floor of the Corsetti building, a glass and steel monument to legitimate business that housed considerably less legitimate operations on its upper floors. I'd learned not to ask questions about the men in expensive suits who arrived after hours, about the locked filing cabinets I wasn't given keys to, about the phone calls Nathan took behind closed doors in rapid Italian that made his jaw tighten and his eyes go cold. I'd learned to be invisible when necessary and indispensable when required. The elevator chimed, and my pulse quickened, despite 2 years of practice at controlling my reactions. Nathan emerged, flanked by Marco and Alessio, his ever-present bodyguards. He wore a charcoal suit that had probably been tailored in Milan, his dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. All sharp angles and aristocratic lines, with eyes so dark they appeared black in certain lights. "Buongiorno, Miss Reed," he said, his Italian accent wrapping around my name in a way that made my stomach flutter traitorously. "Any urgent matters this morning?" I stood, smoothing down my pencil skirt, hyper-aware of how his gaze traveled over me for the briefest moment before returning to my face. Professional, always professional. "The Benedetti family requested a meeting this afternoon," I reported, handing him the leather portfolio I'd prepared. "The mayor's office called twice yesterday evening, and the quarterly reports from the dock operations are ready for your review." Something flickered in his expression at the mention of the Benedettis, his primary rivals in the intricate power structure that controlled New York's underworld, but he simply nodded, accepting the portfolio. "Cancel the Benedetti meeting. Tell them I'm unavailable." His voice was cold, dismissive. "Anything else?" "Your father called from Sicily. He said it was important." Nathan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'll return his call later. Hold all calls until I say otherwise." He disappeared into his office, and I released the breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Marco lingered, his expression knowing in a way that made heat creep up my neck. "You should be careful, Miss Reed," he said quietly in his accented English. "The boss, he doesn't notice much outside business. But when he does notice something..." He trailed off meaningfully. "I don't know what you mean," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the way my heart hammered. Marco smiled. "Of course you don't." The morning passed in its usual rhythm of calls, emails, and the careful choreography of managing Nathan's schedule. I was good at my job, exceptional even. I anticipated his needs before he voiced them, handled problems before they reached his desk, and maintained the fiction that I was merely an efficient employee, rather than a woman who lay awake at night, thinking about the way his hands looked when he signed documents, strong and elegant and completely off limits. At noon, I gathered my purse and coat. "I'm taking my lunch hour," I called toward Nathan's half-open door. "Natalie." His use of my first name made me pause. He rarely used it, preferring the professional distance of Miss Reed. "Where are you going?" "On Marcello's, the Italian place on Fifth Avenue." "Alone?" The question was odd enough that I turned back to face him fully. He stood in his doorway, one hand braced against the frame, his expression unreadable. "I'm meeting someone," I admitted, then immediately regretted it at the way his eyes darkened. "Someone," he repeated flatly. "A friend. from college. The lie came easily, smoothly, because David Chen was technically a friend, even if he'd made his interest in being more quite clear. "I'll be back by 1. Nathan said nothing, but I felt his gaze on me all the way to the elevator. Marcello's was a small, family-owned restaurant that served authentic Italian cuisine, the kind of place Nathan's family would never patronize, because they owned all the upscale establishments and considered places like this beneath their notice. Which was exactly why I'd chosen it. David was already waiting, looking handsome in his navy suit, his smile warm as I approached. "Natalie, you look beautiful." "Thank you." I slid into the booth across from him, accepting the menu with a smile. "Sorry I'm late. Work was hectic this morning." "Your mysterious job that you never talk about," he teased. "One of these days you're going to tell me what you actually do." "Executive assistant," I said, which was technically true, if woefully incomplete. "Very boring corporate work." We ordered, and David launched into a story about his latest case. He was a corporate lawyer with a firm that handled mergers and acquisitions. It should have been interesting. He was attractive, successful, kind, everything a reasonable woman should want. And I felt absolutely nothing beyond mild friendship, because my stupid, traitorous heart had decided to fixate on a man who was dangerous, emotionally unavailable, and completely inappropriate in every conceivable way. I was laughing at something David said, my hand resting on the table between us, when I felt it. That shift in the air, that electric charge that meant... My blood ran cold. Nathan Corsetti stood at the entrance of Marcello's, flanked by Marco and Alessio, his dark eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. He'd removed his suit jacket, his white shirt rolled to his elbows, and there was something almost feral in his expression as his gaze moved from me to David and back again. "Nathan," I breathed, too quietly for David to hear over the restaurant's ambient noise. But Nathan heard. Somehow, across the crowded space, Nathan heard my whisper, and he moved. He crossed the restaurant in long strides, ignoring the way conversations faltered and heads turned. People recognized him, recognized the danger in his purposeful approach, and wisely looked away. "Mr. Corsetti," I managed as he reached our table. "This is unexpected. I'm just having lunch with your friend from college," he finished, his voice dangerously soft. His eyes never left mine. How lovely. David, bless him, seemed oblivious to the undercurrents. He extended his hand. "David Chen. Natalie and I went to Columbia together. Are you a colleague of hers?" Nathan ignored the offered hand entirely. "Miss Reed is my personal secretary," he said, still looking at me. "And she should have informed me she was leaving the office for a personal meeting. We have urgent business to discuss." "I told you I was taking lunch," I replied, finding my voice despite the way my pulse raced. "At Marcello's. You said you were meeting a friend. You didn't mention it was a date." The accusation hung in the air between us. David's eyes widened, clearly picking up on the tension now. "It's not a date," I said firmly, though heat crept up my neck. "And even if it were, that's not your concern." "Isn't it?" Nathan's voice dropped even lower, and he moved closer, into what should have been an uncomfortable invasion of my personal space. But my body betrayed me, leaning toward him rather than away. "You work for me, Natalie. That makes everything about you my concern." "Listen, man," David interjected, his lawyer instincts finally kicking in. "I don't know what your relationship is with Natalie, but you can't just..." Nathan's head turned slowly toward David, and whatever David saw in his expression made him fall silent mid-sentence. "Natalie," Nathan said, his attention returning to me. "We're leaving. Now." "No." The word escaped before I could stop it. "You don't get to do this, Nathan. You don't get to show up during my lunch hour and order me around like I'm... Like you're what? He leaned down, his hands bracing on the table on either side of my plate, caging me in. Like you're mine? My breath caught. The restaurant had gone completely silent around us. I'm your secretary, I whispered. That's all. Is it? His face was inches from mine now, his voice dropping to something intimate and dangerous. Is that why you can't look at me without your pulse racing? Why your breath catches when I say your name? Why you've been lying to yourself for 2 years about what's between us? Nathan, are you on a date? He demanded. Is that what this is? You, sitting here with another man, letting him look at you like he has the right? I can see whoever I want, I managed, but my voice shook. You have no claim on me. Something feral and possessive flashed in his dark eyes. Don't I? And then he kissed me. Right there, in the middle of Marcello's, with David sitting across from me and Marco and Alessio standing guard and half of Little Italy watching, Nathan Corsetti claimed my mouth with a hunger that stole my breath and obliterated every rational thought in my head. His hand cupped my face, tilting my head back as he deepened the kiss, his tongue demanding entry that I granted without hesitation. I tasted espresso and mint and something darker, something uniquely him that made me moan against his mouth. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His thumb traced my swollen lower lip, his expression fierce and satisfied. Mine, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You're mine, Natalie Reed, and it's time everyone knew it. The ride back to the office happened in a fog of shock and residual heat. Nathan's hand never left the small of my back as he guided me out of Marcello's, past David's stunned expression and the dozens of witnesses who'd just seen Nathan Corsetti publicly claim his secretary. Marco held the car door open, his expression carefully neutral, while Alessio scanned the street with professional vigilance. I slid into the back seat of the black Mercedes, and Nathan followed, the door closing with a solid thunk that sealed us in the leather-scented interior. The privacy screen was already up, giving us the illusion of being alone despite Marco driving and Alessio in the passenger seat. You can't just... I started, but Nathan cut me off. I can. I did. His voice was calm now, controlled, but his eyes still burned with that possessive fire. And before you tell me I crossed a line, consider that you kissed me back, Natalie. Quite enthusiastically, if I recall. Heat flooded my cheeks. You caught me off guard. Did I? He shifted closer, his thigh pressing against mine. Or did I finally do what we've both been wanting for 2 years? I opened my mouth to deny it, to maintain the professional fiction we'd built so carefully. But the words wouldn't come. Because he was right. I had kissed him back. I'd melted against him like I'd been waiting for that kiss my entire life. This is a mistake, I whispered instead. You're my boss. There are rules, policies, not to mention what? He turned to face me fully, his hand finding mine on the seat between us. That I'm dangerous? That my business isn't entirely legal? That getting involved with me could put you at risk? Yes, all of that. And yet you're not pulling your hand away. I looked down to find his fingers laced with mine, his thumb stroking across my knuckles in a gesture that was both possessive and tender. He was right. I wasn't pulling away. Nathan, I don't understand what's happening, I admitted quietly. 2 hours ago, I was just your secretary. Now you're saying I'm yours, kissing me in public, and I don't know what that means. It means, he said, his voice dropping to that intimate rumble that made my insides flutter, that I'm done pretending I don't want you. Done acting like you're just another employee when you're so much more than that. What am I then? He was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes searching mine. I don't know yet, he finally admitted. But I know I can't watch you have lunch with another man without wanting to commit violence. I know that seeing his eyes on you, seeing him make you laugh, it made something inside me snap. You're mine, Natalie. However that looks, whatever that means, you're mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me. Should have sent up every red flag I'd learned to watch for after a college boyfriend who'd confused love with control. But with Nathan, it felt different. It felt like claim and promise wrapped together, like he was offering me something precious, even if he couldn't quite name it yet. You can't just decide that, I protested weakly. I get a say in this. Then say it. He leaned closer, his free hand coming up to trace my jawline. Tell me you don't want this. Tell me you don't feel this pull between us. Tell me you haven't thought about what it would be like to be mine, and I'll take you back to the office and we'll pretend this never happened. I should have said it, should have protected myself, my job, my heart. But the words stuck in my throat because they would have been lies, and I'd never been good at lying to Nathan. I can't, I whispered. Can't what? Can't tell you I don't want this. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. I've wanted you since the first day I walked into your office. I've spent 2 years trying to be professional, trying to ignore the way my heart races when you say my name, trying to pretend I'm not affected by you. But I am. God help me, I am. Triumph flashed in his eyes. Finally, you admit it. But that doesn't change the facts, I continued quickly. You're my boss. You're dangerous. Your world is dangerous. And I have no idea how this could possibly work. We'll figure it out. He said it with such certainty, such absolute conviction, that I almost believed him. Together, Tesoro. We'll figure it out together. The car pulled up to the Corsetti building, and reality came crashing back. Marco opened the door, and Nathan stepped out, then offered me his hand, with a courtesy that seemed at odds with the primitive claiming that had happened at Marcello's. The lobby was busy with the lunch hour rush, employees and visitors moving through the marble space. I was acutely aware of the way people's gazes followed us, of the whispers that started the moment we entered. News traveled fast in Nathan's organization, and I had no doubt that half the building already knew what had happened at the restaurant. We rode the elevator in silence, though Nathan kept his hand at the small of my back, a gesture that was both possessive and protective. When we reached the 42nd floor, I expected him to disappear into his office, to give me space to process everything that had happened. Instead, he followed me to my desk. Nathan, people are staring, I murmured, hyper-aware of the curious glances from other employees in the hallway. Let them. He leaned against my desk, arms crossed, looking completely unconcerned. Are you going to see him again? David. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. Think about it now. I met his gaze steadily. Are you ordering me not to? No. Something that might have been frustration crossed his face. I'm asking you not to, as a man who's made his interest abundantly clear, not as your boss. The distinction mattered. I could see that it cost him something to make it. This man who was accustomed to commanding obedience and getting exactly what he wanted. I won't see him again, I said quietly. Not like that. He's a nice man, but I'm not interested in him. I never was. Because of me. Yes. Because of you. Nathan's expression softened almost imperceptibly. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear in a gesture that was surprisingly tender. Go home early today. Take the rest of the afternoon off. Why? Because in about an hour, this office is going to be swarming with speculation and questions, and you're going to be at the center of it all. I'm giving you time to process before you have to face that. The thoughtfulness surprised me. And what will you be doing? Damage control. His jaw tightened. That kiss was impulsive, possessive, and strategically foolish. I've just advertised to everyone with eyes that you matter to me, which makes you a target. Ice trickled down my spine. A target for who? The Benedettis, for starters. My enemies. Anyone who might see you as leverage against me. His hand cupped my face, his thumb stroking my cheek. But don't worry, Tesoro. I protect what's mine, and you're definitely mine now. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression went cold. Marco, he called, and his bodyguard appeared instantly from wherever he'd been lurking. Take Miss Reed home. Stay with her until I send someone to relieve you. Nathan, that's not necessary. It's extremely necessary. He was already moving toward his office. Go home, Natalie. We'll talk tonight. I wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped me. This was Nathan in full boss mode, making decisions about security and protection, with the cold calculation that made him so dangerous. Marco drove me to my apartment in Brooklyn, a modest one-bedroom in a neighborhood that was gentrifying slowly. He walked me up to my door, checked the interior with professional thoroughness, then positioned himself in the hallway. This is really not necessary. I tried again. No one even knows where I live. The boss knows where you live, Marco replied, which means it's in files that could be accessed. Better to be cautious. I closed the door and leaned against it, finally alone with my thoughts for the first time since Nathan had walked into Marcello's. He'd kissed me, claimed me in front of dozens of witnesses, told me I was his, and I'd let him. More than that, I'd wanted it. Still wanted it, despite the fear and uncertainty and the very real danger he'd mentioned. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Answer when I call. N. A moment later, it rang. How did you get my personal number? I asked, instead of hello. I'm Nathan Corsetti, he replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. I have everyone's personal number. Are you all right? I'm confused, overwhelmed, possibly making the worst decision of my life. But you don't regret it. It wasn't a question. No, I admitted. I don't regret it. Should I? Ask me that in a week, he said, his tone going serious. After you've had time to understand what being with me really means. After you've seen the parts of my life I've kept hidden from you. I knew what you were when I took this job, Nathan. I'm not naive. You know what I am on paper. You don't know what it's like to live it. He paused. There's a dinner tonight. At my family's estate in Westchester. I'd like you to come with me. As what? Your secretary? As mine. The possessiveness was back in his voice. As the woman who's going to stand by my side and let everyone know that touching you means war. That's a lot of pressure for a first date, I tried to joke, but my voice shook. This isn't a first date, Tesoro. First dates are dinner and movies and goodnight kisses at the door. This is me bringing you into my world, showing you exactly what you're agreeing to. If you can handle tonight. If you can stand beside me and still look at me the same way you did this afternoon, then we'll talk about what comes next. And if I can't handle it, silence stretched between us. Then I'll let you go, he finally said, and I heard the cost of that promise in his voice. I'll let you walk away, help you find a new job somewhere far from me, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting that I kissed you too soon. You won't let me go, I said with sudden certainty. You're too possessive for that. You're right. His voice dropped to something dark and intimate. I won't want to let you go, but I will, if that's what's best for you. Because as much as I want you, as much as I need you, I won't keep you if my world destroys you. The raw honesty in his admission made my chest tight. "What time tonight?" "I'll pick you up at 7. Wear something elegant." "And Natalie?" "Yes?" "Thank you for giving me this chance, for not running when you should have." After he hung up, I stood in my apartment and tried to process everything that had happened. In the span of a few hours, my entire life had been upended. I'd gone from dedicated secretary maintaining professional distance to the claimed woman of a mafia boss. And God help me, I wanted it. The dress I chose for dinner was a midnight blue silk that hugged my curves before flowing gracefully to my knees. Elegant enough for a family gathering, sophisticated enough to make a statement. I paired it with simple silver jewelry and heels that added 3 inches to my height, armor and display all at once. Nathan arrived precisely at 7, and the sight of him in a black suit that had definitely been tailored in Italy stole whatever composure I'd managed to build. Marco and Alessio flanked him as usual, but Nathan's eyes were only for me. "Bellissima," he murmured, taking my hand and bringing it to his lips. The gesture was old world, courtly, and it made my stomach flip. "You're going to be the most beautiful woman there." "You're biased," I replied, trying for lightness despite my nerves. "I'm Italian. We appreciate beauty." His thumb stroked across my knuckles. "Are you ready for this?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Something that might have been admiration crossed his face. "That's my brave girl." The drive to Westchester took nearly an hour, and Nathan spent most of it preparing me for what to expect. His family would be there. His father, Salvatore, recently returned from Sicily. His younger sister, Gianna, with her husband, Paolo. Various cousins and associates who comprise the inner circle of the Corsetti organization. "They're going to have questions," he warned, "about who you are, where you came from, whether you understand what you're getting into." "Do I understand?" I asked quietly. He was silent for a moment. "You understand better than most. You've worked for me for 2 years. You've seen enough to know what my life entails, even if you haven't been directly involved. But there's more I don't know." "Yes, and I'll tell you all of it in time. But tonight is about showing them, showing everyone, that you're under my protection now. That harming you means answering to me." The Corsetti estate was exactly what I'd imagined. A sprawling property with manicured grounds, security gates, and a main house that looked like it had been transplanted directly from Tuscany. As we pulled up the circular drive, I saw several other expensive cars already parked. "Last chance to run," Nathan said, but there was no levity in his voice. He was serious. "I'm not running." "Good." He helped me from the car, his hand settling possessively at the small of my back. "Stay close to me. Don't wander off alone. And if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately." The interior of the house was even more impressive than the exterior. Marble floors, original artwork, furniture that was probably older than I was. Voices echoed from a room at the end of the hall, speaking rapid Italian interspersed with laughter. The conversation died the moment we entered. It was a formal dining room, with a table that could easily seat 20. About a dozen people were gathered, drinks in hand, but all eyes turned to us the moment Nathan walked in with his hand on my back. "Nathaniel." A man who could only be Salvatore Corsetti stepped forward. He was in his 60s, gray threading through dark hair, with the same aristocratic features as his son, but weathered by decades of power and violence. His eyes, sharp and assessing, moved from Nathan to me. "You bring a guest." "I bring la mia donna," Nathan corrected, the Italian phrase rolling off his tongue with casual possessiveness. "Father, this is Natalie Reed. Natalie, my father, Salvatore. La mia donna, my woman." The declaration rang in the sudden silence. "Miss Reed." Salvatore's gaze was penetrating. "You're Nathan's secretary." "Yes, sir, for 2 years now." "And now you're something more." It wasn't a question. Does this mean you'll be leaving your position? That's up to Nathan, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the scrutiny. No, Nathan interjected firmly. Natalie will continue working with me. She's exceptional at her job, and I have no intention of replacing her. A woman who must be Gianna laughed, the sound breaking some of the tension. Fratellino, you can't keep your mistress as your secretary. It's scandalous. She's not my mistress. Nathan's voice went cold. Watch your words, Gianna. Then what is she? Salvatore asked, still studying me with that unnerving intensity. Mine. Nathan pulled me closer against his side. That's all anyone needs to know. The dinner that followed was both easier and harder than I'd expected. Easier because Nathan's family, once they'd assessed me and apparently found me acceptable, was warm and welcoming in the chaotic Italian way. Harder because I was constantly aware of being on display, every word and gesture analyzed for meaning. Gianna, it turned out, was delightful, quick-witted and irreverent, with none of her brother's careful control. She monopolized my attention through the first course, asking pointed questions about how I'd finally gotten Nathan to notice you're a woman, and not just a very efficient organizer. I'm not sure I did anything, I admitted. He kissed me in the middle of a restaurant this afternoon, in front of everyone. Her eyes widened. He what? Nathan did that? My brother, who treats public displays of affection like a mortal sin. Consumed by jealousy, apparently, I said, repeating the words he'd used. I was having lunch with a friend. A male friend. It wasn't a question. Gianna clearly knew the story already. And he couldn't stand it. Oh, this is perfect. You've gotten under his skin, Natalie. My brother doesn't do jealousy. He does cold and controlled. But with you... She grinned. With you, he's human. I glanced down the table to where Nathan was engaged in intense conversation with his father, their heads bent close together. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders. Should I be worried? I asked quietly. Gianna followed my gaze. About what father's saying? Probably. He's very traditional. He'll be concerned about you being an outsider, about Nathan showing weakness by caring so publicly, but don't worry too much. Nathan doesn't listen to father when it comes to matters of the heart. Well, he's never had to before, since he's never shown interest in any woman longer than a single night. The revelation sent a small thrill through me despite the situation. Never? Never. You're the first woman he's brought home, the first he's claimed publicly, the first who's managed to crack that icy exterior. Gianna leaned closer. Which is why father is worried. Not about you specifically, but about what it means. Nathan with an attachment is Nathan with a vulnerability. And in our world, vulnerabilities are exploited. As if summoning danger by speaking of it, Nathan's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his entire body went rigid. He stood abruptly, cutting off whatever Salvatore was saying. Everyone, excuse me. I need to take this. His eyes found mine across the table. Marco, stay with Natalie. He disappeared into an adjoining room, and the dinner conversation resumed, but I couldn't focus. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the sudden tension among the men at the table, in the way Marco had moved to stand closer to me. When Nathan returned 5 minutes later, his expression was murderous. We're leaving, he announced to the table at large. Then, to me, now. Nathan, what? Not here. He took my hand, pulling me to my feet with barely controlled urgency. Father, we'll continue this discussion tomorrow. Nathaniel, you can't just... Salvatore started, but Nathan cut him off. The Benedettis know about Natalie. They know I claimed her publicly today, and they've made it very clear what they intend to do about it. Ice flooded my veins, The Benedettis, Nathan's primary rivals, the family constantly testing the boundaries of territory and power. "What did they say?" I whispered. Nathan's jaw clenched. "That congratulations are in order, that they're looking forward to meeting my beautiful secretary at the charity gala next week." His eyes met mine, and I saw fury and fear warring in their depths. "It's a threat, Tesoro. They're telling me they can get to you whenever they want." "Then we cancel the gala appearance," Salvatore said firmly. "Keep her out of sight until this blows over." "No." Nathan's voice was absolute. "I won't hide her like she's something to be ashamed of. I won't give the Benedettis the satisfaction of making me act like a coward." "Then you're putting her directly in danger," Salvatore countered. "Is that what you want? To use her as bait?" "I want to show them that threatening what's mine is the fastest way to start a war they'll lose." Nathan's hand tightened on mine. "But I won't do it without Natalie's agreement. This is her choice." All eyes turned to me. The weight of their expectations, their judgments, their concern pressed down like a physical force. "What happens if I stay hidden?" I asked. "The Benedettis will see it as weakness on Nathan's part," Gianna answered when no one else did. "They'll push harder, test boundaries, potentially spark a conflict anyway. But you'll be safer in the immediate term. And if I go to the gala?" "You'll be making a statement," Nathan said quietly. "That you're not afraid. That being mine means something. That the Benedettis don't get to dictate our actions through intimidation. But yes, Tesoro, there will be risk. Even with all the security I can provide, there will be risk." I looked at this man who'd claimed me so publicly, so possessively, who'd kissed me in front of witnesses and brought me into his world, despite knowing it would paint a target on my back. Who was now, for the first time since I'd met him, asking rather than commanding. "I'll go to the gala," I said firmly. "I won't hide." Something fierce and proud flashed in Nathan's eyes. "You're sure?" "I'm terrified," I admitted, "but I'm sure. If being with you means facing this world, then I'm facing it. I won't be the weakness that brings you down, Nathan. I won't." He pulled me into his arms right there in his father's dining room, in front of his entire family, and kissed me with a tenderness that contrasted sharply with the fierce possession of this afternoon. "You could never be a weakness," he murmured against my lips. "You're my strength, Natalie, and I'll prove it to the Benedettis and everyone else. You're mine. And no one touches what's mine." As we left the estate, surrounded by security, I caught sight of Salvatore watching from the window. His expression was troubled, calculating, and I realized that whatever had begun this afternoon at Marcello's, whatever Nathan and I were building together, we were only at the beginning. The real test was still to come. Nathan insisted I move into his penthouse that very night. Not a request, but a statement of fact delivered in the car with Marco driving and Alessio making calls in rapid Italian about security protocols. "I'm not letting you stay in Brooklyn alone," he said when I started to protest. "Not with the Benedettis making threats. My place has security your apartment building couldn't dream of. Nathan, I can't just move in with you. I have a lease. Responsibilities. I'll buy out your lease. I'll have Marco pack your things tomorrow." His hand found mine in the darkness of the back seat. "Please, Natalie, I need to know you're safe, that I can protect you." The raw emotion in his voice decided me. This wasn't about control or possession. It was about genuine fear for my safety. Fear that I'd inadvertently put myself in danger by becoming his. "Okay," I agreed softly. "But this is temporary. Until the situation with the Benedettis is resolved." His fingers tightened on mine. "We'll see." Nathan's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building in Tribeca that probably cost more per month than I made in a year. The elevator opened directly into the living space, An open concept design with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Manhattan. Everything was sleek and modern, all dark wood and leather and masculine sophistication. "The guest room is down that hall," Nathan said, reading my hesitation correctly. "You'll have your own space. I'm not assuming—" He stopped, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "Despite what happened today, despite claiming you publicly, I'm not expecting you in my bed tonight. This is about keeping you safe, not taking advantage." The clarification should have relieved me. Instead, I felt oddly disappointed. "Thank you," I managed, "for being clear about that." "Don't thank me yet." His voice was rough. "Every instinct I have is screaming at me to take you to my room and finish what we started this afternoon, to claim you completely. But you deserve better than a rushed seduction based on adrenaline and fear." "And what do I deserve?" He stepped closer, his hand coming up to trace my jawline. "You deserve to be courted, romanced, given time to truly understand what you're choosing." His thumb brushed across my lower lip. "You deserve a man who can be gentle with you, patient, who doesn't let his possessive streak dictate every action." "And are you that man?" I whispered. "I'm trying to be. For you, I'm trying." He leaned down, pressing a kiss to my forehead that was achingly tender. "Get some rest, Tesoro. Tomorrow will be a long day." The guest room was beautiful and impersonal, decorated in shades of cream and gray. I showered in the attached bathroom, using the unopened toiletries I found under the sink, then slipped into one of Nathan's shirts that I'd borrowed from his closet because I had nothing else. Sleep should have come easily after the emotional exhaustion of the day. Instead, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from Nathan's jealous appearance at Marcello's to his fierce declaration at his father's house. Mine, he'd called me. Repeatedly, possessively, absolutely. And I'd let him. More than that. I'd embraced it, stood in front of his family and agreed to face danger rather than hide. Moved into his home without really questioning whether it was too fast, too much. What was happening to me? A soft knock at the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Natalie? Are you awake?" I sat up. "Come in." Nathan entered, and I tried not to stare at the way his sleep pants hung low on his hips, his chest bare and displaying the lean muscles I'd only glimpsed through his shirts. His hair was mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. "I can't sleep," he admitted. "Knowing you're here, just down the hall, safe, but so close." He trailed off. "I needed to see you, to confirm you're real and not some dream I'm going to wake from. I'm real." I pulled the blanket up higher, suddenly aware of my bare legs and the fact that I was wearing his shirt. "Are you all right?" "No." He sat on the edge of the bed, careful to maintain distance. "I'm terrified, Natalie. Truly terrified in a way I haven't been since I was a child. Because I've given the Benedettis exactly what they need to destroy me. Someone I care about more than my own life. Nathan." "Let me finish." His voice was rough. "You need to understand what you've become to me in the span of one day. It's not rational. It's not logical. But the moment I saw you with that man, saw him looking at you like he had the right, something inside me snapped. All the careful control I've maintained for 2 years, all the professional distance, it shattered. And I realized I'd been lying to myself." "About what?" "About my feelings for you. About how long I've wanted you." He finally looked at me, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole my breath. "I've been half in love with you since the day you walked into my office for your interview. You were wearing a navy dress, your hair up, and you looked at me without flinching. Without the fear most people show. You looked at me like I was just a man." "You are just a man," I whispered. "No, Tesoro, I'm not. I'm a monster who does monstrous things to protect my family and my territory. I'm a criminal, a murderer when necessary. I'm everything you should run from." His hand reached out, hovering over mine but not quite touching. "But God help me. I'm selfish enough to want you anyway. To claim you and keep you despite knowing you deserve better." I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. What if I don't want better? What if I want you, flaws and darkness and all? Then I'll spend every day proving I'm worthy of that choice. He brought our joined hands to his lips. "But you need to know the full truth first, about my business, my family's history, what being with me really means. Tell me." And he did. For the next 2 hours, sitting on the edge of my bed in the pre-dawn darkness, Nathan Corsetti told me everything. About the Corsetti family's roots in Sicily, how his great-grandfather had built an empire through violence and strategic alliances, how that empire had evolved over generations, becoming more sophisticated, but no less dangerous. He told me about the legitimate businesses that fronted for less legal operations, the dock warehouses that concealed smuggled goods, the restaurants that laundered money, the construction companies that provided jobs for family members who needed alibis. He told me about the violence, the men who'd crossed him and paid the price, the territory wars that occasionally erupted into bloodshed, the uncomfortable alliances with other families, the Russos and the Lombardis, that kept the peace most of the time. And he told me about the Benedettis, the rival family that controlled the opposite side of the city, that had been testing boundaries for months, looking for weakness. How they'd seized on his public claiming of me as exactly that: weakness, vulnerability, a pressure point they could exploit. "They'll try to use you against me," he said bluntly. "Either to manipulate my decisions or as a direct target. The gala next week is just the beginning. By showing up together, we're essentially declaring that I'm willing to go to war over you." "Are you?" I had to ask. "Willing to go to war over me?" Without hesitation. His conviction was absolute. "You're mine, Natalie. That means I protect you with everything I have, every resource, every alliance, every ounce of power I've built. Anyone who touches you answers to me." The possessiveness should have frightened me, should have sent up every warning flag about controlling behavior and dangerous men. But I understood now. This wasn't about controlling me. It was about protecting me, about a man who'd built walls around his heart for decades, suddenly finding someone worth tearing those walls down for. "I'm scared," I admitted quietly. "Of the danger, of how fast this is happening, of how much I feel for you already." "Good." He squeezed my hand. "Fear keeps you careful, and I need you to be careful to sorrow. I need you to listen when my security tells you something. I need you to trust that I know this world better than you do." "I can do that. But Nathan," I waited until his eyes met mine, "I won't be locked in a cage, even a gilded one. I won't give up my job, my independence, my life because of danger. If we're doing this, if we're really together, then we're partners. You don't get to make all the decisions." Something that might have been respect flashed across his face. "Partners," he repeated, testing the word. "I've never had a partner before. This is going to take adjustment. For both of us." I managed a small smile. "I've never dated a Mafia boss before, or lived with someone, or been publicly claimed in a restaurant." "I'm sorry about that," he said, though his expression suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "About making a scene. But I'm not sorry about the kiss, or about everyone knowing you're mine. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I know you would." I shifted closer, drawn by a force I couldn't name. "Nathan, I need you to understand something. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Not because I'm naive about the danger or blind to your flaws, but because I want you. Have wanted you for longer than I'm willing to admit. So stop apologizing for claiming me and just be with me." His eyes darkened. "Natalie, I know you were trying to be a gentleman, giving me space and time, and I appreciate that. But I'm in your bed at 3 a.m, wearing your shirt, having just heard the worst things about your life. And I'm still here, still choosing you. You don't know what you're asking." "Don't I?" I reached up, cupping his face. "I'm asking you to stop treating me like I might break, to trust that I'm strong enough to handle this, to handle you. I'm asking you to finish what you started in that restaurant." For a long moment, Nathan didn't move. His dark eyes searched mine, looking for doubt or fear or hesitation. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he made a sound low in his throat, half growl, half surrender, and closed the distance between us. His kiss was nothing like the possessive claim at Marcello's. This was thorough, consuming, a slow exploration that made my toes curl. His hands framed my face with devastating gentleness as his tongue swept against mine, tasting, claiming, promising things that made heat pool in my core. "Last chance to change your mind," he murmured against my lips. "Once I start to sorrow, I won't be able to stop. You'll be mine in every way that matters." "I'm already yours," I whispered. "Now prove you're mine too." What followed was nothing like I'd imagined. Nathan was demanding but tender, possessive but careful, taking his time to learn every inch of me with hands and mouth that knew exactly how to drive me crazy. When he finally claimed me completely, our eyes locked together, his name a prayer on my lips. It felt like coming home. Afterward, we lay tangled together in the twisted sheets, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. "Marry me," he said suddenly. I lifted my head to stare at him. "What?" "Marry me. Be my wife, not just my woman. Let me give you my name, my protection, everything I have." "Nathan, we just slept together for the first time. We've known each other for 2 years but been together for less than 24 hours. This is insane. Everything about us is insane." He pulled me closer. "But it's also inevitable, Natalie. We both know it. So why wait? Why give the Benedettis time to make moves against us? If you're my wife, you're untouchable, protected by every law and custom that governs our world. That's a terrible reason to get married. Then here's a better one. I love you." The words were simple but weighted with meaning. "I've loved you for longer than is rational given our professional relationship. I love the way you organize my life, the way you anticipate my needs, the way you look at me without flinching. I love your strength and your kindness, and the fact that you're brave enough to face my world, despite every reason to run. Marry me, Natalie. Not because it's strategic, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it." Tears pricked my eyes. "You barely know me. I know you better than you think. I know you take your coffee with cream and no sugar. I know you bite your lower lip when you're concentrating. I know you organize your files by color because it's more aesthetically pleasing than alphabetically. I know you volunteer at the literacy center on weekends and that you send half your paycheck to your grandmother in Florida. I know you, Tesoro, and I love everything I know." "I love you too," I admitted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "Which is probably why I'm even considering this insane proposal. Is that a yes?" I looked at this dangerous, beautiful man who'd claimed me so fiercely, who'd torn down every wall between us in a single day, who was offering me not just his protection, but his heart. "Ask me again in a week," I said finally. "After the gala. After we've faced the Benedettis together. If we survive that, and you still want to marry me, then yes, I'll marry you, Nathan Corsetti." His smile was slow and satisfied. I'll hold you to that, Mrs. Corsetti to be. The week leading up to the gala passed in a blur of preparation and planning. Nathan insisted on hiring a full security detail just for me, a team of 4 rotating guards who followed at a discreet distance whenever I left the penthouse. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being wrapped in an invisible shield. I continued working as Nathan's secretary, though the dynamic had fundamentally shifted. We were still professional during business hours, maintaining appropriate boundaries in meetings and phone calls. But there were moments. His hand at the small of my back as we entered the conference room. The way his eyes tracked me when he thought I wasn't looking. The possessive kiss he'd steal when we were alone in his office. That made it clear to everyone what I was to him. The rumors spread through the organization like wildfire. Nathan Corsetti, the cold and controlled boss, was completely gone for his secretary. Some found it romantic. Others worried it made him vulnerable, but no one questioned it to his face. The Benedettis have been quiet, Marco reported during one of Nathan's daily security briefings. Too quiet. They sent the initial threat, then nothing. It makes me nervous. It should, Nathan replied, his arm draped casually over my shoulders as we sat on the penthouse couch reviewing the gala security arrangements. They're planning something. The question is what and when. Maybe they'll respect the charity gala as neutral ground, I suggested hopefully. It's being held at the Metropolitan Museum. Surely they wouldn't risk a public incident there. Nathan and Marco exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. Tesoro, Nathan said gently. The Benedettis don't care about neutral ground or public incidents. If they've decided you're a target, the gala is the perfect opportunity. Crowded, chaotic, hard to secure completely. We'll have security, but so will everyone else. Weapons will be limited. It's actually one of the most dangerous situations possible. Then why are we going? I demanded, frustration bleeding through. If it's that dangerous, why not just skip it? Because not going shows fear. Salvatore had appeared in the doorway. Nathan's father had taken to dropping by the penthouse unannounced, ostensibly to discuss business, but really to assess me. In our world, fear is worse than death. It invites attack. Better to face danger head-on and show strength. Even if that means putting Natalie at risk? Nathan's voice went cold. Natalie has chosen this life. Salvatore moved into the living room, his appraising gaze on me. She could have walked away when you gave her the chance. She didn't. That means she understands the cost. I understand there's danger, I said, meeting his eyes steadily. That doesn't mean I'm comfortable being used as bait. No one is using you as bait. Nathan pulled me closer against his side. You're going to the gala as my partner, my equal. If the Benedettis try something, they'll find out exactly what that means. The night of the gala arrived with unseasonable warmth for October. Nathan had arranged for a stylist to come to the penthouse, and I emerged from the bedroom in a gown that made me feel like royalty. Deep emerald silk that complemented my coloring, with a neckline that was elegant rather than provocative, and a skirt that flowed like water when I moved. Nathan's expression when he saw me made every moment of preparation worthwhile. Bellissima, he breathed, crossing to take my hands. He wore a tuxedo that had definitely been custom-made, his dark hair styled perfectly, and he looked like sin and sophistication wrapped together. You're going to steal every man's attention tonight. I only want your attention, I replied, and watched heat flare in his eyes. You have it. Always. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a velvet box. I wanted to give you something. For tonight. Inside was a necklace that made my breath catch, a delicate chain holding a single emerald surrounded by diamonds. It was beautiful and clearly expensive, and perfectly complemented my dress. Nathan, it's too much. It's not nearly enough. He fastened it around my neck, his fingers lingering on my skin. Every man there is going to look at you tonight and know you're mine. This is just a reminder. For them and for you. The museum was transformed for the gala, its grand halls filled with hundreds of guests in designer gowns and tuxedos. A string quartet played in one corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, and everywhere I looked were faces I recognized from newspapers and society pages. The wealthy elite of New York City, many of whom had connections to the families that controlled the underworld. Nathan kept me close, one hand at the small of my back or holding mine, a constant reminder of his presence and protection. Marco and Alessio flanked us at a discreet distance, and I spotted other familiar faces from Nathan's security team, positioned strategically throughout the hall. Nathaniel Corsetti. A smooth voice cut through the ambient noise. What a pleasure to see you here. I turned to find a man who could only be Marco Benedetti approaching. He was perhaps 60, silver-haired and distinguished in a way that made him look more like a banker than a crime boss. His smile was pleasant and didn't reach his cold eyes. Marco. Nathan's voice was carefully neutral. Congratulations on your recent expansion into the waterfront district. And congratulations to you. Marco's gaze slid to me, assessing and calculating. On your new relationship. This must be the lovely Miss Reed I've heard so much about. Mrs. Corsetti, Nathan corrected smoothly, and my head snapped toward him in surprise. We were married yesterday. A small private ceremony, family only. The lie fell from his lips with practiced ease, and I struggled to keep my expression neutral despite my shock. We weren't married. We hadn't even officially gotten engaged yet. But Nathan was claiming we were, creating a fiction that made me untouchable under the laws that governed his world. My sincere congratulations, Marco said, his eyes narrowing slightly. How sudden. I hadn't heard about an engagement. We prefer to keep personal matters private. Nathan pulled me closer. I'm sure you understand. Of course. Marco's smile never wavered. Though I am curious, does your lovely bride understand what she's married into? The responsibilities and dangers that come with the Corsetti name? I understand perfectly, I said before Nathan could respond. My husband has been very clear about what our life together entails. Something that might have been respect flickered in Marco's eyes. Well then, I wish you both happiness. Marriage can be so rewarding when one finds the right partner, and so tragic when that partner is taken away. The threat was barely veiled. Nathan went rigid beside me. Is that a warning, Marco? Merely an observation. The older man spread his hands innocently. The world is dangerous after all. Accidents happen, even to those we love most. Then it's fortunate I take precautions to protect what's mine. Nathan's voice dropped to something deadly. I'd hate for any accidents to befall my wife. It would make me quite unreasonable. The two men stared at each other, tension crackling between them like electricity. Then Marco smiled and inclined his head. Enjoy the evening, Nathaniel, and congratulations again on your marriage. I'm sure it will be a blessed union. He moved away, disappearing into the crowd. I released the breath I'd been holding. He knows we're lying. About being married. Probably, but now he can't be sure, and the uncertainty will make him cautious. Nathan guided me toward a quieter corner. I'm sorry for springing that on you, but calling you my wife gives you protection under our laws that simply being my girlfriend doesn't. So we're fake married now, or we could make it real. His dark eyes held mine. Right now, tonight. There's a judge here, Judge Martinelli. He's in our pocket. We could do it legally, properly, before anyone knows what's happening. My heart hammered. Nathan, we talked about this. After the gala. After we face this together. We are facing it together. Right now, Tesoro. And I'd rather face it with you as my wife in truth, not just fiction. His hands framed my face, Marry me, Natalie. Tonight. Make me the happiest and most terrified man alive. I should have said no. Should have insisted we stick to our plan, give ourselves time. But looking into his eyes, feeling the solid warmth of him against me, I realized the truth. I was going to marry Nathan Corsetti. Whether tonight or next week or next month, it was inevitable. We were inevitable. Yes, I whispered. Yes, let's do it. Let's get married tonight. The ceremony happened in a private room off the main hall, with Judge Martinelli officiating, and Marco, Alessio, and Gianna, who appeared from seemingly nowhere, as witnesses. It took less than 10 minutes from start to finish. The exchange of simple vows, the signing of documents, Judge Martinelli declaring us legally married under New York law. And suddenly, I was Mrs. Nathan Corsetti. We returned to the gala as husband and wife, and Nathan wasted no time spreading the word. Within minutes, it seemed like everyone knew. Whispers spreading through the crowd, congratulations offered with varying degrees of sincerity, the news rippling outward like a stone dropped in still water. Marco Benedetti's expression when he heard was priceless. Shock giving way to calculation, giving way to a cold fury he couldn't quite hide. "You've made your statement," he said when Nathan maneuvered us close enough for conversation. Quite dramatically. And I have a tendency toward the dramatic when it comes to my wife. Nathan's arm tightened around my waist. I believe in making things absolutely clear. Crystal clear. Marco's gaze dropped to my left hand, where Nathan had slipped a platinum band that must have been waiting in his pocket all evening. "I wish you both happiness. Truly." But his eyes said something different. They said, "This isn't over." The rest of the gala passed in a haze of congratulations and veiled threats, of champagne toasts and barely concealed danger. Through it all, Nathan kept me close, his touch possessive and protective. The wedding band on my finger a constant reminder that I'd just legally bound myself to one of the most dangerous men in New York. We left early, citing newlywed impatience that made people laugh knowingly. But once we were in the car with Marco driving and Alessio scanning for threats, Nathan's expression turned serious. "The Benedettis won't let this go unanswered," he said quietly. "Marrying you publicly, making it legal and binding, it's a direct challenge to their authority. They'll have to respond." "How?" "I don't know yet, but we need to be ready for anything." He pulled me against his side. "I'm sorry, Tesoro. I've dragged you into a war." "You didn't drag me anywhere." I laced my fingers with his. "I walked into this willingly. I married you willingly. Whatever comes next, we face it together. That's what being married means, right?" His smile was tired, but genuine. "That's exactly what it means. You and me against the world, Mrs. Corsetti." "You and me," I agreed, and sealed the promise with a kiss. The war started 3 days after the gala. I was at my desk outside Nathan's office, reviewing contracts and trying to adjust to the weight of the wedding band on my finger, when Marco burst through the door with an urgency that made my pulse spike. "Boss, we have a problem. The shipment at the docks, it's gone. All of it." Nathan emerged from his office, his expression going cold. "Define gone." "Stolen, in broad daylight. The Benedettis moved on our territory and took everything. The goods, the cash, the men we had stationed there. They left a message." "What message?" Marco's gaze flickered to me, hesitating. Nathan noticed immediately. "Say it in front of my wife. She deserves to know," they said. Marco's jaw tightened. "They said to give Mrs. Corsetti their regards, that they hope she enjoyed the wedding, and that gifts will be arriving soon." Ice flooded my veins. They weren't just attacking Nathan's business. They were making it clear that I was the catalyst, the weakness they were exploiting. "How much did we lose?" Nathan's voice was eerily calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. 3 million in goods, Another million in cash. And 2 of our men are in the hospital, beaten badly but alive. They wanted to send a message, not start a bloodbath. Not yet, Nathan corrected grimly. He turned to me. Natalie, I need you to go home. Take Alessio and... No. I stood, my hands planted firmly on my desk. I'm not running and hiding while you deal with this. We're married now. That means I stand with you. It means I protect you by any means necessary, which includes sending you somewhere safe while I handle this. And I'm telling you I'm not leaving. I moved around the desk to stand in front of him. They did this because of me, Nathan, because marrying me gave them leverage. The worst thing I can do now is prove them right by acting like your weakness. Something flickered in his eyes, pride, warring with fear. Natalie. No. Listen to me. I gripped his arms, forcing him to focus on me. If I hide, they win. They prove that I'm your vulnerability, that threatening me makes you weak. But if I stay, if I stand beside you and show no fear, then we prove the opposite, that I make you stronger, not weaker. She's right, Marco said quietly. Strategically speaking, having Mrs. Corsetti visible and unafraid sends a powerful message. Nathan's jaw clenched. The risk is worth it. I stretched up to press a kiss to his lips. Trust me. Trust us. We're partners, remember? In everything. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the battle raging behind his eyes. Finally, he exhaled roughly. Fine, you stay. But security doubles. You don't go anywhere without guards. You don't make any public appearances without my approval, and if I say run, you run. Understood? Understood. Good. He turned back to Marco. Call a meeting. All the capos, all department heads. We're hitting back tonight, and I want everyone to know why. What followed were some of the longest hours of my life. Nathan's penthouse transformed into a war room, with men in expensive suits arriving in a steady stream, their expressions grim as they learned about the Benedetti attack. I sat in the corner of the room, present but not participating, a silent statement that I was part of this now. The plan they devised was precise and brutal, a coordinated strike on 3 Benedetti operations, timed to cause maximum disruption with minimal casualties. Not a bloodbath, Nathan insisted, but a clear message that the Corsettis didn't accept challenges to their territory. What about Marco Benedetti himself? One of the capos asked. Do we make a move on him directly? No. Nathan's voice was firm. We stay within the rules. We hit his business, not his family. Not unless he escalates first. After the meeting dispersed, Nathan found me on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. His arms came around me from behind, pulling me back against his chest. You should be furious with me, he murmured against my hair, for dragging you into this life, for making you a target. I'm terrified, I admitted, but I'm not furious. I knew what I was choosing, Nathan. Maybe not the specific details, but the general reality. This is your world, and I chose to be part of it. You're braver than I deserve, and you're more capable of tenderness than you think. I turned in his arms. What happens tonight? We send a message, loud and clear, that attacking the Corsettis has consequences, that my wife is off limits, protected by every resource I have. His hands framed my face. And if they still don't get it, if they escalate, then we prepare for real war. Will it come to that? I don't know. Marco Benedetti is smart. He might back down once he sees we're serious. Or he might dig in, force a confrontation that could destabilize the entire power structure in the city. His thumb stroked my cheekbone. But whatever happens, you stay safe. That's my priority above everything else. The retaliation happened at midnight. Nathan left with Marco and a dozen armed men, leaving Alessio and 3 others to guard me at the penthouse. I wanted to argue, to insist on coming with him, but I understood the practicality. I'd slow them down, be a liability in a potentially dangerous situation. So I waited, and worried, and paced the penthouse until Alessio gently suggested I might wear a hole in the expensive hardwood floors. Nathan returned at 3 a.m., unharmed but exhausted. "It's done," he said simply, pulling me into his arms. 3 of their operations are offline. They'll recover, but it'll cost them weeks and millions in lost revenue, equal to what they took from us. And now? Now we wait to see how they respond. Whether they escalate or accept that we're evenly matched. The answer came the next morning. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Alessio answered a knock at the door. I heard voices, his questioning tone, a woman's urgent reply. And then he was ushering Gianna into the penthouse, Nathan's sister looking uncharacteristically frazzled. "Where's Nathan?" she demanded, still sleeping. "What's wrong?" "The Benedettis." She thrust her phone at me, showing a news article. They went to the press. About Nathan's businesses, his connections, allegations of criminal activity. They're trying to force a federal investigation. My blood ran cold. Can they do that? They can make enough noise that the feds have to look into it. She ran a hand through her hair. It's a brilliant move, actually. If they can't beat Nathan in the streets, they'll try to take him down legally. And if he goes to prison, you become a very wealthy widow who no longer has his protection. Nathan appeared in the doorway, wearing only sleep pants, his hair mussed. "What's happening?" Gianna filled him in quickly, and I watched his expression go from sleepy to furious to grimly calculating. "They've escalated," he said flatly. "Made it personal. Legal moves are fair game in our world, but going after family directly." He trailed off, his jaw tight. "What does this mean?" I asked quietly. "It means the Benedettis have declared total war. Not just territory or business, but everything. They want to destroy me completely, which means destroying everyone close to me." "Then we hit back," Gianna said fiercely. "We go after their legitimate businesses, their political connections." "No." Nathan's voice was firm. "That's what they want, to drag us into a public battle that exposes both families to federal scrutiny. We'd both go down." "Then what do we do?" Nathan was silent for a long moment, his gaze distant. Then his eyes focused on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "We end this. Permanently. Marco Benedetti wants a war. I'll give him one. But on my terms." What followed was the most tense week of my life. Nathan worked around the clock, making calls, arranging meetings, calling in favors from allies and neutral parties. Through it all, I stayed by his side, a constant presence that seemed to both comfort and worry him. "You should leave the city," he said one night as we lay in bed, exhaustion making him more honest than usual. "Go somewhere safe until this is resolved. I can't protect you if the Benedettis decide to make a direct move. I'm not leaving you. Natalie? No." I rolled to face him, my hand on his chest above his heart. "We made vows, Nathan. In sickness and health, for better or worse. This is the worst part, and I'm staying." He pulled me against him, his face buried in my hair. "You're going to give me a heart attack before I'm 40. Then it's good you're only 35. You have time to adjust." The endgame came unexpectedly. Marco Benedetti requested a sit-down. Neutral territory, no weapons, just the 2 bosses and their seconds. It was a gesture of peace, or as close to peace as existed in their world. Nathan was suspicious, but he agreed to meet. And despite his protests, I insisted on coming with him. "Absolutely not," he said flatly when I announced my intention. "This could be a trap. I'm not walking you into potential danger." "Then we're at an impasse, because I'm not letting you walk into potential danger alone." I stood firm. I'm your wife, Nathan. That means we face things together. Even this. In the end, he relented, probably because he knew I'd find a way to follow him anyway. The meeting was set for a private room at a neutral restaurant, one owned by the Russo family, which had an interest in peace between the Corsettis and Benedettis. Marco Benedetti was already there when we arrived, his son Vincent at his side. Both men's eyes widened when they saw me with Nathan. You brought your wife, Marco observed. Unexpected. I go where my husband goes, I said before Nathan could respond. Especially to meetings that concern our family's future. Something that might have been respect flickered across Marco's face. Then please, sit. We have much to discuss. The negotiation that followed was intense and complex. Marco laid out his position, the territorial disputes, the business conflicts, the escalating war that was costing both families money and men. He proposed a solution, a redrawing of territory lines, giving each family clear areas of control with buffer zones managed jointly. And in exchange for this peace, Nathan asked, what do you want? Acknowledgement, Marco said simply. That the Benedettis are equal to the Corsettis in power and influence. That we're not subordinate or lesser, but peers. Nathan was silent for a long moment. This was about pride, I realized. About respect. Marco Benedetti had been trying to prove his family's worth, and Nathan's public marriage to me, his obvious vulnerability, had seemed like an opportunity to demonstrate superiority. I can agree to that, Nathan said finally. Equal territories, equal voice in citywide decisions, equal representation in joint ventures. The Corsettis and Benedettis as partners rather than rivals. And your wife? Vincent spoke up for the first time. She remains off limits? No retaliation for the trouble this has caused? My wife was never a legitimate target. Nathan's voice went cold. Threatening her was a violation of every code we live by. But if we're declaring peace, then yes, Natalie is off limits. As is your entire family, Marco. Clean slate, starting now. Marco extended his hand across the table. Then we have an agreement. Nathan shook it, and just like that, the war was over. Later, in the car riding back to the penthouse, I finally let myself breathe. Is it really done? I asked. For now. Nathan pulled me close. Peace in our world is always temporary, always conditional. But yes, the immediate threat is resolved. You're safe. We're safe. Because I didn't hide. I looked up at him. Because I stood beside you and made them see that I wasn't your weakness. You were never my weakness. His hand cupped my face. You're my strength, Tesoro. Always have been. The Benedettis just needed to learn that the hard way. So what happens now? Now? He smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it reached his eyes. Now we actually get to be married without war looming over us. We get to build a life together. Figure out what it means to be Nathan and Natalie Corsetti. I think I'd like that. Good. Because you're stuck with me now. Legally, eternally, irrevocably mine. Yours, I agreed, and sealed the promise with a kiss. 3 months later, I stood in the penthouse looking out at the city lights, my hand resting on the small bump that had started to show beneath my clothes. Nathan's baby, growing inside me. A new generation of Corsetti that would be born into a world of danger and power, but also into a family that loved fiercely and protected completely. Nathan's arms came around me from behind, his hands covering mine over the bump. What are you thinking about, Mrs. Corsetti? The future, our future, this baby's future. Worried, terrified, but also hopeful. We've survived assassination attempts, territory wars, and federal investigations in our first 3 months of marriage. Surely parenthood can't be worse than that. He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest against my back. I wouldn't be so sure. From what Gianna tells me, babies are far more terrifying than rival crime families. Then it's good we're in this together. Together, he agreed. Always together, Tesoro. You and me against the world, however that looks. And as I stood there in his arms, safe and loved, and building a future that was complicated and dangerous and absolutely perfect, I realized that running into that restaurant 3 months ago, letting jealousy and possession and fate bring us together, had been the beginning of my real life. The life I was always meant to live, as Mrs. Nathan Corsetti.